Alrighty, thank you for the welcome, and let's go. And let's hope I do this right. It's a left click? Yep, okay. All right. For any parent, from the transition to adulthood with our children is always an interesting journey, working at keeping our relationships healthy and strong and learning how to increasingly let go and trust, seeing them forge their own independence and become successfully established, a journey that's uniquely repeated with every one of our children. These same steps and hopes are there when we have a child growing up facing the challenges that come with Prader-Willi syndrome. However, looking towards adulthood can sometimes feel like we're looking across a canyon to the cliff on the other side and seeing a swaying suspension bridge with way too many gaps between the planks. I recognise and would like to acknowledge, as others have done during the conference, that all of our children who have Prader-Willi syndrome are unique and that our family situations are all different, and I don't suppose for one moment to give any indication that that our journeys will have to be the same and we are all different. However, with the benefit of hindsight, mistakes made, understanding increased, and a perspective from the other side of the cliff, I'd like to share something of our story and the importance of building extra scaffolding or adding more planks to strengthen the bridge in preparation for the journey to adulthood and to carry our young people into their future. To give a brief introduction, our eldest son David is 30 and was diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome when he was 8. In looking back, it was clear that he had all the classic symptoms as a newborn baby. His milestones were mostly delayed but satisfactorily achieved. Verbal communication skills were very strong. As a child, food was very much enjoyed, but food seeking was rarely a problem. David had his own pocket money and generally spent it on his current areas of interest. We progressed through regular schools with an increasing awareness of the growing distance for David from his peer group's social, emotional and academic development. As a family, we faced a variety of behavioural challenges that intensified significantly as we moved into the teenage years. We were stretched to our limits and I would have to say quite unprepared for the transition that was coming. David began to exert a fierce drive for independence from his mid-teens, and it wasn't until that time that we actually began to engage with services outside of home. Unfortunately, we went through a number of years of struggle with David trying to gain support that he needed to achieve successful independence. In our situation, the support came in response to a serious health crisis. But I'm so pleased to be able to report that now, several years on, David is happy and in glowing health and half the weight he was at that most difficult time. As you consider the future, there are 3 questions that I'd like to encourage you to ask yourself. I can remember attending a Preparing for the Future workshop for parents of children with disabilities a number of years ago now. The presenter posed a question for us that afternoon that I've never forgotten. What needs to be established in case I'm not here tomorrow? It's in some ways not a nice question to sort of think about and fairly confronting, but as she said that day, we actually are only guaranteed today. As we approach the adult years for our children, it really is important to ask ourselves this question and to consider what preparations we need to make for the future so that we can provide the best opportunity for our children to have a successful future. The second question is, what does my child or my young person want? I'm the kind of person that can tend to think things through, to run ahead and have worked out what I think is going to be best, how things should be and maybe need to be. But our young people need us to hear what's important to them concerning their future and their goals. There have been many times over the years that I've felt David, our son, needed certain things to make him happy or to be fulfilled. But like with all of our children, it was important for me to recognise that David is not me. The third question is, what really matters? Over the time, I've learnt to let go of many things that I might like to fix up. There are enough things that my son has had to relinquish his full control over, and he doesn't need me to put pressure on for the things that don't really matter. As an example, over time, David has become increasingly minimalist and ordered regarding his personal possessions, including both household and clothing things. There have been many times that I've tried to persuade him to alter his bent in that area, supposedly for his sake. This has been most outwardly obvious with regard to clothing, particularly with the consistent weight loss that he's had over many years now. David only likes to have a particular number of everything and does not readily see the need or find easy the process of replacing items. He'll rarely allow us to take a role in this, so it's an area that support staff now have strategies in place to help him work towards change and action. At a recent extended family gathering, one of my uncles-in-law, who hadn't actually seen David for quite a while, commented to me how well he was looking, but added the comment, he needs a new coat though. Yes, the jacket is way too big, the zip down the front is broken, but it's actually not what really matters. With regard to the jacket, it actually has a lot of unseen ties of emotional connection and attachment for him. There'll be a day for change, but he will choose, and on that one it's okay. During the years of transition to adulthood, there are many changes that are taking place, and as the parents of a young person with Prader-Willi syndrome, you're the one who's going to be in the best position to advocate on their behalf. No doubt you will have had many years of practice by the time you get to that. You'll have the benefit of knowing what's been working, what hasn't worked, and what's needed for best practice for your child. Keep a history over time. Build the story as your child's journey progresses. Looking back will often give you understanding as to why things are working as they are. Much of our advocacy work over time has had to be done behind the scenes, as it was perceived by David to be at cross purposes with his growing sense of independence. When this is the case, it presents a challenge, but it doesn't lessen the need for our voice to be heard. When those working with and on behalf of our young people truly understand Prader-Willi syndrome, and that's been reiterated throughout the conference on many different levels, then the outcomes just are so much better. Our advocacy role and engagement is also important if our young people become involved with support organisations, whether it ends up being for respite or residential support or workplace support. It's vital that the agency that we're working with and the support staff members are familiar with and wherever possible receive training about PWS. St Kilda School's obviously a prime example at a younger level. David has been living in his own unit in a supported community for a number of years now, and over that time the quality and effectiveness of his support has steadily improved. And I believe that one of the most important contributors to successful support on any level is consistency. There can often be a high turnover of support staff in some areas, and this brings an obvious challenge to consistency. A few years ago, I was able to work on developing a training session for support workers that we've now presented a number of times for David's support organisation when there's been a turnover of staff. And the session simply involves an overview of Prader-Willi syndrome, medical issues, and practical application about what it all means for today and into the future. In some situations, there might be trainers that are physically able to come to an organisation, and I'm aware that in Australia, the Victorian Association now has the capacity to provide video link training, which is a great development. There's also an increasing amount of quality information that's available on the internet, but wherever possible, I'd encourage parents to look at face-to-face style communication in some way, and any agency, any school, any workplace today should be willing to work with you in that area. We've heard a bit about relationships this morning, but when it all boils down, relationships really are the fabric of life. And despite the relationship challenges that are there for our young people with Prader-Willi syndrome, I believe that successful relationships with strategic people are a key to their successful independence. In our circumstances, diet and weight was relatively well managed within our household routines up until David's transition from high school, and the same could be said for some of his medical routines as well. In hindsight, for us, we blundered through this period. It was like trying to catch a horse that had bolted and bring it back into the yard. We were clutching at dietitians to try and establish some sense of relationship and connection and cooperation, and David would resist going to medical appointments and to having his needs disclosed. Paediatric services obviously begin to phase out during the teenage years, and it's really important to give consideration to the health and ancillary needs that may be needed for your child as you look to the long-term future. If you happen to be within the range of an adult Prader-Willi syndrome clinic, it obviously makes things a little bit easier. But for many of us, we live in more isolated situations in the PWS sense. It's a little like you may well have taken a toddler for early visits to the dentist, simply to have a ride in the chair, your teeth counted, a friendly chat, establishing trust and relationship, knowing that that's a journey that's going to have to continue for life. I would encourage parents in a similar way to consider relationship connections that will be needed and have the potential to carry your child into the future, and actually to begin to build those well before you get there. Strengthen the bond with a GP, making sure that they are on board and up to date with information and the health needs for adults. Is there perhaps a specialist physician in your area that can develop a relationship and work with your young person to oversee their health needs as an adult? And one particular thing that I would really encourage you to think about as well is considering a counsellor or psychologist to journey with your child, someone that's outside of the emotional connections in your life, which obviously get stretched a little more as they want to become an adult. Even when there aren't psychological problems presenting, this can be an extremely valuable relationship, a sounding board, a space to release anxieties and tension, and a voice that's allowed to speak in a different way to us, and a safe place for them. I recognise that today many families are likely to already be working with the dietitians, but whatever your situation, I would strongly encourage parents when you're getting into the teenage years to begin to look for a dietitian and help your son or daughter to establish a working relationship with the dietitian that can carry them into adulthood and can transfer if they're going into any supported accommodation situations or any independent living. For the young people that are keen to feel independent, that's a vital link to establish, and it's another plank to strengthen the bridge for them. For us, for the post-school combination of change of routines, increased freedom and independence and increased access to money brought a new wave of challenges for us. We had thought and hoped that David's previous disciplines would carry us through, but instead we found ourselves faced with a dogged determination to make the most of every dollar with regard to food. And I'm really aware, and I see a number of young people, that our children can be extremely different in that area, but in our situation we were taken by surprise. We endeavoured to put into place boundaries around David's access to and use of his disability support pension. This was an incredibly difficult process. He was angry and wanted to be trusted, and we wanted to trust, but were grieving because of the levels of broken trust. We all experienced grief in that time. I would encourage parents to plan ahead in this area, have conversations and consider your options well ahead in talking amongst yourselves, but then engage your son or daughter in the process and provide them with suitable choices. If they can own a decision with how money gets managed, that increases their feeling of independence as well. Some of our young people will be quite content in this regard, whatever happens with money management, but others will find it more of a struggle. Following the health crisis that provoked the release of a significant individual support funding package for David 7 years ago, we were required to go before the guardianship board because of the restrictive practices for his support. And David agreed at that time to accept a public guardian over his health and lifestyle decisions, and to accept that his father would administrate his finances for him. And in our situation, that's actually been a positive experience for all of us. The public guardian communicates with David and with all parties involved should any need or decision be brought before him for mediation. We've found that in all significant areas of life, a hierarchical system works most effectively for David and takes the heat off those that are working with him on the ground. If there's something he's not happy about with regard to his food, support workers refer him to speak to his dietitian about it. If there's a tricky health issue that needs addressing or change and he's not keen about it, he can go to his public guardian for assistance. We're now free to be David's parents and no longer appear to be the ones directing everything or controlling everything in his life. Janice Forster spoke to us this morning about the importance of food security, of everything security, and we would wholeheartedly agree with Janice in the practical outworking of that. Now that questions about food are not the major organiser of thought and behaviour for David, he has a very successful, supported independence that can continue with problems even if we were to be away for a time. Wouldn't it be lovely if growing up were that simple and the transition was that simple? But may I just say that whilst we've experienced a journey that has been incredibly difficult, today our relationship with David is strong, it's interesting, but it's an absolute delight. His own independence has been forged and he is successfully established. We're truly proud of the young man our son has become and of the courage that he has displayed. So persevere, plan ahead, enjoy the journey, be brave, and best wishes for each of you. Yeah.